I'd like to actually ask the members of Parliament that are present on the panel what part of democracy they don't actually understand. Parliament had a ballot, did it not, in order to have the referendum. They voted 6-1 to have the ballot. You took that ballot, you took the chance, we had the referendum, you didn't get the answer that you wanted, and now you want to turn it round for the last government. Can I have a ballot?
Can I answer your question? I mean, what I was saying, and my clarity is that I'm not saying and I'm not suggesting we ignore the vote. The vote is quite clear. But as a Member of Parliament, I have a responsibility for British jobs, British workers, and for our public service, and to support that. So you need clarity that we're going to safeguard that.
The BBC debate was the usual political performance until one man quietly broke the pattern. Angela Rayner, full of confidence and polished lines, never saw it coming. No shouting, no theatrics, just a calm, direct question that left her completely stunned. What was that question? Why couldn't she respond? And is Labour still feeling the shock from that moment? Stay tuned. That single exchange shook the entire stage. British politics like this one. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Dark British. Believe it or not, over 98% of viewers watch our content without hitting the follow button. Subscribing is completely free.
Angela, which of your party's U-turns are you most proud of? The ditching of the £28 billion climate investment plan, keeping the cruel two-child benefit cap, or one of the others?
What I'm not proud of is that we've had 14 years of the Tories and the crashing of the economy, but what I am realistic about is we've got to have a programme for government which is credible, that can grow our economy so we can invest in our green prosperity plan and so that we can eradicate poverty. And I know Labour can do it because we've done it before.
The BBC debate felt less like a real political discussion and more like a scripted reality show. Polished stage, rehearsed lines, and the same old promises. The audience looked half curious, half bored, with their thumbs ready to tweet. It wasn't question time. It was more like Britain's got excuses.
The effects of the Birmingham bin strike have been declared a major incident. There are national embarrassments, and with 21-degree temperatures forecast later this week, will become a public health emergency. With Labour MPs in Birmingham busy campaigning for an airport in Pakistan, and the Secretary of State unwilling to visit the city or take on the Union Unite, is that because of the tens of millions of pounds her party receives from Unite, or indeed the £10,000 she's received for her own election campaign?
All right, let me ask you about another element of this. On the present densities, you're going to add 3.4 million, or homes for 3.4 million people with your 1.5 million houses. On your own figures, we're also going to add to our population 2.5 million people over this same period. Are you content that more than 5 out of 7 new homes will go to immigrants?
Angela Rayner stepped into the spotlight like it was her big moment, polished, confident, and loaded with buzzwords. She wore that familiar politician's smile, part friendly, part daring. Her energy screamed performance, upbeat, rehearsed, and completely unaware of the storm that was about to hit her.
I'll give way.
Deputy Prime Minister for giving way. By my calculation, Madam Deputy Speaker, if the government is going to build 1.5 million homes over the course of this Parliament, given that we're 9 months into the first year of this Parliament, the government should have built 225,000 by now. Can she confirm how many have been built?
Secretary of State. Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, I think he's just an example of what the mess the previous government left us in. We've been consulting, we've been working with industry, we've had a new homes accelerator, 1,000 more put into the system.
Everything about her said, "I've got this." Angela Rayner scanned the audience with ease, her polished nods ready for the cameras. She was running on debate autopilot, primed to take jabs at the Tories, throw in a few working-class one-liners, and glide through the night fueled by caffeine and sound bites. This was supposed to be her big moment until it quickly turned into a brutal reality check.
I mean, you know, the immigration thing, what was it? 700 migrants have arrived in 11 boats. Angela Rayner yesterday announced, or today, she's abandoned plans to give Brits council house priority. Brits who pay their taxes and work. I thought they were going to get no, you're not getting priority anymore. I'm sorry, that's not happening. No, we're going to give them to migrants. And then even worse, Labour has decided to drop a plan to ban terrorists from social housing. Now, call me mad, right? How the hell does anybody listen to those two things and think that's anything other than bloody disgraceful?
Behind her, The panel looked like a tired cast from an old political drama, each one waiting to deliver lines we've all heard since 2019 with all the impact of a soggy sponge. You could almost sense Rayner glancing sideways, silently warning her backup crew not to upstage her. The audience was a carefully arranged mix of polite claps, fake concern, and that eerie silence that always comes before the storm. Angela probably believed she was stepping into a safe space filled with approval and predictable praise. Funny, really.
Funnily enough, Angela Rayner doesn't have a unique thought to herself because Lewis Goodall, who's the one who's interviewing her, before that, the start of that clip, actually says, "Do you think, Angela, that you're the victim of misogyny and classism?" And she goes, "Oh yeah, I am actually." She doesn't have original thought in her brain, quite frankly, Angela Rayner. So she's just gone, "Yeah, well, I'm gonna."
But what Angela didn't realize was that sitting quietly in the crowd was a man who had no interest in spin, showmanship, or political games. No cue cards, no filter, just calm, direct clarity. Then suddenly, he stood up. No shouting, no finger pointing, just quiet precision. He looked like he might ask for directions to the loo, but instead, with the calm of a Netflix assassin, he asked, "Why should we believe you now when you've already failed to deliver before?" Silence, not the fake kind where someone pretends to sip water, real, spine-tingling silence. Rayner blinked once, then again. If a loading bar had appeared above her head, no one would have been surprised.
For the last government, can I have a ballot?
Can I answer your question? I mean, what I was saying, and my clarity is that I'm not saying and I'm not suggesting we ignore the vote. The vote is quite clear. But as a Member of Parliament, I have a responsibility for British jobs, British workers, and for our public service, and to support that. So you need clarity that we're going to safeguard that.
She tried to answer, but all that came out were worn-out buzzwords and vague promises. The audience wasn't buying it. They saw straight through the act. That one calm question had shattered the illusion. And just like that, others started speaking. Up to this wasn't a debate anymore, it had turned into a reckoning. Rayner reached for familiar scapegoats, but there were no cheers, no applause. People are done with hollow slogans and recycled lines.
Your job is to represent the public, the people who elect you. Start doing your job. If you don't like it, clear off. Simple as that.
Rayner froze when asked to name even one company that supported Labour's employment bills. Instead, she launched into a buzzword-heavy monologue about affordability and shifting targets more confusing than a weather app. It was clear she wasn't just caught off guard, she was in freefall. Watching her fumble was like watching someone try to play chess using Connect 4 rules. The moderator eventually stepped in not to save her, but just to keep the show moving. But the damage was already done. This wasn't a simple stumble, it was a full-blown political collapse. Triggered not by a fierce opponent, but by a calm man who probably just came for the free water. Online, the fallout was instant. Clips spread like wildfire. Twitter nicknamed her Angela rattled Rayner, while TikTok looped her shaky answers through fisheye filters. This wasn't just a rough night. It was a blooper reel classic.
Economic activity at risk. I'm just saying, do you think you would have a rethink on it?
Well, I think that there was an imbalance, and we spoke to many businesses. They've been working with us to get the Employment Rights Bill forward.
Can you name a company, a few of them, that have welcomed these proposals?
Well, we've worked with many of the companies. I've worked with so many of them on this. I've had many roundtables, as the business secretary, and they've very much welcomed the work that we've been doing on making sure that people...
You must be able to name a few, because I can name all the companies, the recruitment companies, Hayes, Manpower, Randstad. They've signed the letter saying this is the wrong approach. You're going to put jobs at risk. Which are the companies that have welcomed your employment?
I was incredibly disappointed to see the contents of that WhatsApp group. I think it was disgusting, some of what was said in that group, and I'm genuinely shocked by it. It's not what I recognise from the councillors that I interact with, because obviously I'm neighbouring MP and Tameside is my borough as well. And for me, you know, we've got our standards in public life. People put a lot of trust in.
Even the Facebook boomers were lighting up the comments section, but the real shock came from Labour's own supporters. People who once cheered for Rayner started raising eyebrows not out of hate, but because they sensed panic. When your own voters start asking if you've even read your own manifesto, you know things are going downhill fast. This wasn't just a slip-up, it became a symbol of performative politics. Voters are tired of catchy slogans. They want real plans and real backbone. Rayner, once the fiery voice of Labour, suddenly looked like someone reading lines she didn't even believe in. And the hardest part, the man who asked that brutal question wasn't a political rival. He was a lifelong Labour voter, someone who came looking for answers, not to humiliate. That's what made it sting. Rayner didn't just stumble. She failed to convince someone who was already on her side.
To immigrants.
Well, that's not
the truth, and that's not the
That's
case.
what will happen.
Well, that's not the reality, because with
Well, where
in
the
particular in
2.5
social
million immigrants that are in Rachel Reeves' budget figures going to turn up? Where are they going to live?
Well, there's plenty of housing in the UK, but the houses, especially social
hang on.
affordable
You
homes
can't, on the one hand,
building,
say we've got to build this 1.5 million houses, and then say there's plenty of housing already.
There is plenty of housing, Trevor, already, but there's not enough.
For Angela Rayner, the Right to Buy scheme meant buying her own home and improving her financial circumstances. But it seems such a policy will no longer be afforded to people living in council houses. Up the ladder for Ms Rayner, but it's only snakes for you.
Imagine playing for your home team and missing the goal so badly that even your own fans start wondering if you need your eyes checked. That's exactly how Angela Rayner looked after the debate. Her eyes were hollow, already bracing for the next day's headlines. Labour's spin machine went into overdrive PR fluff, carefully clipped highlights, and the usual routine of blaming the Tories, but the crack had already appeared. The illusion was shattered. Next time Rayner walks into a room, it won't be applause that greets her. It'll be hard questions and colder stares. People aren't naive anymore. They're watching, listening, remembering, and if one calm man with one honest question shook her this much, just wait until she's standing in front of a room full of voters who had enough of empty promises. Because once the crowd figures out the trick behind the political theatre, the clapping stops, and it doesn't come back easily.
We've cut the criteria so people can't get community care. We treat our older people at the moment like dogs. It's a disgrace. We shouldn't do that.
But, excuse
Should
me,
be investing and putting the money in the primary care
Would you
services.
reverse the cuts on corporation tax?
I think that the cuts on corporation tax are missing a point because we need that money. We need that money at the moment.
Would you reverse it? Hold on.
Inheritance tax.
Would you reverse them?
I think that at the moment, cutting at a time where we need those services and people need those services is the wrong decision to
But
make.
I'm asking you, would you reverse the cut in corporation tax?
But I'm told.
David Lammy seems to think that the law does not apply to Angela Rayner just because she's not Prime Minister.
Look, I think there's a different arrangement and expectation for the Prime Minister than there is in this context. We're not yet in government.
Okay, so the law doesn't apply to you, basically, if you're not the Prime Minister. That would be consistent with David Lammy's views of how he's supposed to behave on air as an LBC presenter, because we saw him breaking the news the other day, which is completely against the Ofcom rules. Now, Angela Rayner has been quite a hypocrite on.
The most embarrassing part wasn't just the question, it was the silence that followed. A silence Labour still hasn't managed to turn into applause. This moment hit hard, not because Rayner stumbled, but because the political illusion finally cracked. For years, politics has survived on noise viral clips, outrage, finger-pointing more about headlines than honest answers. But when that man stood up and calmly asked his simple, devastating question, something shifted. He didn't yell, he didn't accuse, he just sounded exhausted. And somehow, that hit deeper than any argument. People aren't clueless or disengaged. They're just worn out, tired of hearing the same promises repackaged every few years. That one quiet moment didn't just cut through Rayner's rehearsed lines, it exposed the growing distance between what politicians say and what the public believes. Voters aren't chasing fireworks anymore. They're looking for something real, someone who doesn't sound like they're auditioning for a role in political theatre.
You've all taken a 2.8% pay rise as agreed by the MP's pay review body.
The pay review body is independent.
Hang on a second, is that particularly working class? All those things taken together, is that working class?
All those things taken together, Tom, I've just explained to you, the winter fuel allowance people are over £400 better off because we protected the triple lock, we protected the most vulnerable. I've just explained to you the welfare and the principles and the values that we will protect those that need it and make sure that they get the support, and we've got to make sure that people can get into work. And in terms of the pay rise, MPs do not have any control over that.
That moment wasn't just about the question, it marked a shift. People are waking up from a media-induced nap, slowly realizing they've been watching a pantomime dressed up as democracy. And once you see through it, there's no unseeing it. You can't unhear the silence that followed Rayner's stumble. You can't ignore the fact that if politicians can't handle one calm, honest question, they probably don't have real answers at all. So here's what we should be asking. If more people spoke up like that man did, how many political facades would collapse before lunchtime? And if Angela Rayner couldn't handle that one question, come polite and simple, what happens when the next one digs deeper? Because let's be honest, that wasn't an attack. It was just a tap on the glass. The real cracks, they're still coming.